So today we've been working in the garden again, and playing as well, preparing to change from summer to winter. And I'll just show you what we've been doing up there, because we've been basically clearing space for winter crops. So just before we have a look up the top, here are the apples on my apple family tree. This has got 3 different varieties on it. You'll note they're all quite small. This is because I didn't thin the apples out this spring. I really didn't have the time. I was having a lot of trouble moving around, and I never even got around to looking up what needed to be done. But I know I need to do that next year, so I'll get fewer apples but bigger and more useful ones. Half a barrow load of compost, which came out of our maturing bin. We've been putting compost on some of our beds ready for the winter crops. Had another picking of strawberries today. So here is my salads bed. I know it's got some baby runner bean plants in it. I put them in because I had them left over and wanted to see what would happen. You see I've got some lettuce coming on. They'll survive quite well in the cold weather, and I've got some winter varieties to get ready soon. Haven't pulled out the courgettes from here because they're still sort of trying to produce, so I thought I'd leave them for a bit longer. They're not really in the way of anything. So this is where one of our patches of sweet corn were. We pulled that out today, and that's going to have peas sown in there later. And this is where the runner beans were. We took them out. I've left the roots in because the roots have nitrogen in them, and I'm going to put in some broccoli, some cabbage and some curly kale in this area here. So that's going to be our winter brassicas. Broccoli is a particularly good crop to grow in the garden because it's very expensive to buy in the supermarket. It's easy to grow, and it's absolutely delicious. They say it's the poor man's asparagus, but if I had a choice of only one or the other for the rest of my life, I wouldn't be choosing asparagus. So here is our new pear tree. It's been growing over the summer. I need to take the sunflower out from next to it now that it's finished doing its job. Hopefully that will have some fruit on it next year. And here is the apricot that went in as a bare root tree a while back, and it's now, as you can see, got some leaf on it, and hopefully next year again that will hopefully do something. Cherry tree's looking good. We had a good crop off that this year, and there's a couple of raspberry canes there. They're the ones that didn't fruit this year, so they're the ones that need tying up for next year. They probably need more support than I'm giving them at the moment, so I'll see what I can do. And at the back of the garden here we've got the russet apple tree. Again, the apples are not as big as they really needed to be because I didn't thin them out, but I will be doing that next year, and I'll be also keeping a bit better eye on when they're ready to start being picked. A lot of them fell off this year, and I'm not quite sure whether they were ripe or not. And here is the blackberry and honeyberry area. The honeyberry's been in for 2 years and hasn't produced anything. The loganberry went in this year and it's looking good for next year. And the thing with these sort of split leaves on it, that's a blackberry. That's a thornless domestic blackberry. The big branch up there that you can see didn't fruit this year, so that's what's going to fruit next year. So I shall be tying that in and leaving that up. And down the bottom there's the branch that fruited this year. So when it's finished fruiting, I will be cutting that out because it's only going to get in the way next year. And we've also got some other things here. We've got some foxgloves and so on that we're growing to try and make this a sort of an ornamental area as well as a fruit area. And we've got some strawberries which are trying to compete with everything else. So we'll see how we get on with them. And right at the back there is my autumn raspberry. That's still producing raspberries. Hasn't produced a lot this year, but it has actually fruited this year, so next year it should do a lot better. And I do have space next to it for another autumn fruiting raspberry cane, but the last 2 I tried to plant both died. I'm not quite sure what that's trying to tell me. Maybe the soil's a bit too alkaline for raspberries. We'll have to see. The other raspberries seem to do quite well though, so I'm hopeful. So now it's time to sort out the broccoli plants and get them in. So I put in these posts to support the broccolis. They're going to need a quick tap with a hammer to drive them in a bit further. I've dug some little holes and I've put in some water mixed with fertiliser. The ground is quite damp, but a little bit of fertiliser doesn't do these things any harm. Now there's 3 I've already planted, and I've got another 3 to plant. So I'll just knock one out and then we'll plant it and show you what I'm doing. So I'm just going to take this plant that I've knocked out and pop it in the ground. I'm going to plant it quite firmly. These things need to be planted firmly. In fact, most things need to be planted quite firmly. And I've put it next to a stick because it'll need some support as it grows up, and we'll see how we get on. It is a bit late to put these in, so I'm not terribly hopeful they're going to do brilliantly, but I might as well have a go. So this is the section that's going to be for greens that are going to overwinter. There's the 2 rows of broccoli there, 3 plants in each row. 1 row of red cabbage here, 4 plants, and 1 row of kale here, 4 plants. So hopefully they'll all do well. They're in where the beans were, so there should be plenty of nitrogen in the soil for them. But I have given each hole a good dose of water with some general purpose fertiliser in, and then I've given them some water afterwards. And in a minute I'm going to water the whole of the garden with nematodes. These are a creature which naturally controls slugs, and slugs can definitely be the gardener's enemy. So here's the slug. It comes in a little plastic tray. I've emptied it all into this bucket and mixed it up with my mixie stick, and in a minute I'm going to put some of it into this watering can, which has got a rose on it and which has got some water in it, and I'm going to water it around the garden, the idea being to get some everywhere. It needs to be done when it's not too cold. It needs to be over 50 degrees soil temperature, which it is at the moment, won't be for much longer. And it needs to be done when it's damp, and it's certainly damp at the moment because we've had a bit of rain and we're expected some more this week. So it should be ideal conditions, and hopefully this will keep the slugs under control so they don't breed too much in the winter, and I'll have some chance when I start planting stuff out in the spring. And also, hopefully my winter crops will have a chance as well.